Set very solid boundaries with your ex. This falls into a similar category of bare minimum contact with your ex. From this point forward, you need to be incredibly clear with yourself about what is okay and what is not okay with regards to your relationship with your ex moving forwards. It's impossible to list every question you might need to kind of ask yourself, but here are a few examples. What are you willing to talk about with your ex, and what are you not willing to talk about with your ex? Are you going to have any physical contact from now on? Are you going to hug? Are you going to handshake or anything like that? Do you even need to ever speak to them again? Will you send birthday cards and presents? Will you stay in contact with their family members? Will you stay in contact with their friends? Did you have abbreviated names for them? If so, will you still use them? Will you accept compliments from your ex? You need to understand what you're willing to accept. And this has got nothing to do with what your ex might want with regards to the answer of any of those questions. This is your place. This is your boundaries you're setting. You are drawing lines in the sand and saying, this is the line that they can or cannot cross. So don't worry about what your ex might think about what your boundaries are. Find out what your boundaries are, draw red lines, and do not accept your ex crossing those boundaries. Understanding what your new relationship with this person is. Following on from boundaries, you need to understand how this person now fits into your life. If you're married and you've got children, then for starters, you're going to have all of the legal things to go through, and maybe that can just be done through solicitors entirely, and you don't have to have any contact. If you've got children, then you're going to have contact and communication with regards to, lifts and picking up and changeovers and clothes and all the things that they're going to need moving forward. So you're kind of tethered together for the rest of your life. But that doesn't mean that they have to have the same role. So if they were your husband, you can just think of them now as the father of your children, or, roles reversed, wife and mother of your children. If you're boyfriend and girlfriend and you're living in a rented place together, you need to sort out the kind of living arrangements, split up the possessions maybe, make sure, hopefully that's all done fairly, and then ask yourself, do I need to have this person in my life anymore? So get a really clear idea in your mind about who your ex is now. Are they the mother of your children? Are they a friend? Are they a nobody? Or are they just somebody that you used to know? I won't sing that because that would be awful. This is something that most people need to do, and even more so coming out of a breakup, because there are going to be emotional scars, particularly if you were treated badly, particularly if the breakup was done in a very disrespectful way, or you just weren't treated with respect throughout the relationship. There are going to be emotional scars that need to be healed. For example, if you didn't feel very confident, you didn't feel very good about yourself, and your ex was your validation, it's like, oh, do I look all right in this? And you ask that every single time you got dressed. That person is not there to validate you anymore. So you are going to have to learn to validate yourself. You have to learn to look in the mirror and say, yes, I look good in this, or yes, that looks fine, or whatever it might be. That comes down to your decisions as well. Breakups can be utterly soul destroying. They can be so painful. It can feel like there's no point in going on because you've lost the person that you loved like most in the entire world. However, with a bit of time and a bit of a shift in perspective, a bit of reframing, you can look back at it and go, yeah, it's actually the right thing for us to not be together anymore. I wish they'd done this, and this in a different way, but the right decision was made, but just acted on in a very bad way. For example, breakups actually allow you more freedom and more time. So what are you going to do with that time? How are you going to use that freedom? For starters, I suggest you find out who you are, because you have been part of a duo for a while, and now you're by yourself. Are you the same person outside of that relationship? Or are you someone new? Are you someone better? I think that you could be. Be single, whatever that means to you. The amount of times I hear about people ending relationships, even long-term relationships, and instantly being with a new partner is just a little bit terrifying. Now, for a lot of people, a relationship leaves a big hole in their life, and they want that hole filled. They've lost their purpose. They want to give a lot of love to someone, and they don't have anyone to give that love to anymore, or whatever it might be. But like I said, with regards to fixing yourself, that part needs to be done first. So you need to be single. You can do what you want. But presumably watching this, you're probably someone who wants to be in a relationship. Now, the best way to be in a good relationship is not just to jump straight into the next relationship. The best way to be in a good relationship is to take the time to heal yourself, be on your own, find out what you're all about, and move on from a solid foundation. So being single might mean sleeping around. Being single might mean, you spend a lot of time meditating by yourself, or you find time to read a book now. But you've got to spend that time being single, being on your own, and feeling as if you do not need another person in your life. Now, once you reach the point that you don't feel like you need someone, that is the perfect time for you to then be in a relationship. Because if you go into a relationship that when you feel like you've got needs to be met, then that all of a sudden there's a lot of pressure on that person to be in a certain way for you, or it's just going to feel wrong, or it's not going to feel quite right. Now, if you're going into that in the wrong place, then there's going to be trouble from the start. But if you go into it straight from whatever your last relationship is, the chances are it's going to fall into the same pattern. So if you required a lot of validation in your last relationship and you instantly, bang, go straight into the next relationship, then in that relationship, the same pattern is going to happen where you have someone who's going to have to validate you a lot. And chances are it's going to play out in exactly the same way and not end well. Be single, find yourself, feel like you don't need anyone else in your life, and that is then the perfect time to move on. Decide what you want in your next relationship. Now, if you've gone through all of the different bits of advice and tips and tricks and everything I've given you, and you've reached the point where you don't feel like you need anyone anymore, you're all powerful. You know exactly who you are, you know exactly what you want, and you don't need anyone. So you can now set out your own personal guidelines of what you want the next relationship to be like in terms of everything. So you can decide exactly what you want someone to be like, what you're willing to put up. If you were spoken down to for the whole of your last relationship, then you can say categorically, I am not going to put up with someone talking down to me. The moment someone talks down to me, that's it, we're done. I'm not putting up with that anymore. If you were ridiculed and say, no, I'm not going to be ridiculed anymore. If you were just used as a sex object and say, no, I want sex to be on my terms. Whatever boundaries you want to set within whatever your next relationship is, that is down to you. This is the power that you are going to give yourself by going through a longer process, finding yourself and putting yourself into the point where you don't need anyone. And then you have the power. You decide what you are willing to put up with. And when you're in that place, you can know that your next relationship will be a better one than the previous one.